Good evening, everyone. We are continuing on our study in the book of Ruth. And we left off at verse 12. And so today we continue in verse 13. But just by way of a review, which is very important for us, so that we keep in context what has been happening, it would be good for us to just scroll up a little bit and to understand the conversation from verse 11. Now, if you recall, it was Ruth who had embraced Naomi and to join Naomi as part of the nation that Naomi is, called nation of Israel, and to be subjected to all the rules and regulations and the laws of God. And well, for lack of a better word, adopt Jehovah as her God, because she is Naomi's God. And in so doing, in verse 11, Boaz actually said to her that what has happened has been fully reported to me, which means that Boaz actually knows of her situation with regards to what she has done for your mother-in-law, meaning she has not abandoned the mother-in-law. And not only that she has left the father and mothers and the land of her birth and has come to a people whom you did not know before. Now, this entire sequence of expressions really requires us to understand that this is Ruth having, well, for lack of a better word, converted or joined Naomi as part of Israel. As you recall, Naomi kept pushing her back, but Ruth was adamant. Now, this entire understanding of joining Israel is a very, how should you say, a very intense decision, not something to be trivialized. And Boaz then tells her that he wishes a blessing on her, that the Lord will repay your work. Work means what she has done with regards to the mother-in-law, that she has not abandoned her mother-in-law, and that a full reward be given to you by the Lord God of Israel. And so we saw that this piece here, and a full reward, is really an A and a B, right? Repay, shalem, and given to you as a reward, also a shalem. It's something that God wants to give, or he's saying as a blessing to give as a full reward. So the word full here is shalem. And so this is a play of the word, so that it is understood that it is God, the Lord God of Israel, is the one that will bless her. And the description of her joining Israel are actually found in these words: under whose wings you have come for refuge. That it is seen that God's wings are around Israel as a nation. And Ruth has come from another country, another land called Moab, and has parked herself under the wings of the God of Israel. That is what it means to join Israel. And that is what I want us to have in mind. And that Boaz is particularly interested in what she has done, because it is, well, I would say, fairly unusual for somebody from another country, especially one in Moab, where the place is good. But why did Ruth, leave Moab, her family and her land, and to come to a land that she doesn't know? And yet she's willing to embrace all these. Now, the idea of embracing really literally means to join as part of Israel. When we come to verse 13, that's Ruth. So Ruth says to Boaz, Ruth says, let me find favor in your sight, my Lord. When he says my Lord, you need to understand that this word is Adoni. And it is slightly different in sound from Adonai. And we know, at least from the text of the Hebrew text, Adoni, maybe I should just take away the Y sound here. Adoni is usually used in reference to a person. Adonai, on the other hand, is used in relationship with Jehovah, God. And that's how, in general, 99% of the time, the text is used in the Hebrew text of the Bible. So Adon is Lord. Adoni is my Lord with regards to human. And Adonai is my Lord with regards to God. Now, understand that in the Hebrew context, there's these words here. Let me find. Now, find is a very interesting thing. Is that it may not be there. Something has to be done. That favor is grace in your eyes, my Lord. And so always remember, in the Hebrew context, grace or favor is actually to be found in the eyes of the beholder. In this case, Boaz. Because if Boaz has grace for Ruth, and Ruth says, I have found favor in your eyes, or grace in your eyes, she is now expressing a surprise. Why? Because she says, for you have comforted me and have spoken kindly to your maidservant, though I am not like one of your maidservants. The context works this way. You have comforted me. The word comforted here is nacham, console. Console meaning, you can see it from a more positive viewpoint that Boaz is giving encouragement to Ruth. And she is away from everyone, from home, and she is, away from home alone. And for a young woman to have done that is an incredible feat, number one. And number two, to join the nation of Israel is an even more incredible action that she has done. And that is why Boaz is looking at Ruth very differently. Now, Ruth is saying, you have spoken kindly. The word kindly here is speak upon, right? Upon your heart. And this word kindly is not the regular Hebrew word for kindly. It is a very imagery word that Ruth is saying, you have spoken to your maidservants from your heart. You have told them about me and how you would address me like one of your maidservants. And I am not like one of your maidservants. What does that mean? Meaning she is not an Israelite. Right? I'm not an Israelite like your maidservants, and yet you have consoled me, you have comforted me, you have spoken to me like I'm your maidservant, like I'm like one of you. I think that would be a good way of expressing like I am of one of you. Meaning, Boaz is treating her not only that she is a welcome ger or a foreigner who has joined the nation, she is treated like one of them. And that's a very interesting expression. that she is not treated like an alien, she's treated like one of the Israelites. Now, at mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come here, eat of the bread and dip your piece of bread in the vinegar." I guess we can assume that the day is hot, and this would be similar to the fact that vinegar helps cool down on a hot day, like lemonade. But this is Hebrew culture. So dipping bread in vinegar helps whet the appetite and helps cool her down. And so she sat beside the reapers, and would be the women reapers. And he passed a parched grain to her. Now, we're not quite sure what is this word, but it could be it could be a barbecue corn, maybe, right? A roasted corn, maybe, right? We don't know exactly, but maybe. And she ate and was satisfied, meaning ate to the full, and she kept some back. Now understand that she kept some back. We'll read about this. She kept some of the food back, right? Verse 15, and when she finished eating, she rose up to glean again. This is about gathering the remnants. Now look at what Boaz is telling his young men to do. So Boaz says here, gave a command or instructed, maybe the word instructed is good, right? Instructed his young men, also the ones who are harvesting, and says to her, says to them, says, let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not rebuke her. Now, this word is rebuke. Let her glean as she collects it. Let it be among the sheaves, which is for the harvest. Now, the law of gleaning is only for the corners and for whatever they have dropped, that they will not pick it up and allow the poor, the needy, and the ger, the aliens, the foreigners who have joined Israel to pick. But Boaz has gone one step further to understand that Ruth may not know that the actual harvest is not for her to glean, that she's only to glean at the corners of the field and in the pathways where things were dropped. But Boaz says, let her do that. So that's an important exception. And do not rebuke her, because generally, if you are an Israelite and you know your law, you won't be doing this. But Ruth is not an Israelite, and yet she is treated in a better way to give her the allowance that she doesn't know everything as yet. Verse 14, also let grain. Now, I don't think it's grain here. The text doesn't say grain. It says, let things fall from the bundles purposely for her. This means that when you have it in the bundles, let it fall, and pretend that you have dropped it. Basically, you need to understand that when they harvest, they are hugging the bundles, and let them drop onto the ground, and these would be stalks. I think that would be a better way. Let the stalks fall. And by stalks, it means that, it could be a handful of stalks to fall on the ground for her to glean, and leave it that she may glean, and do not rebuke her. This is a very interesting expression, because Boaz is treating Ruth very special, more special than the Israelites to compensate for the fact that she doesn't know and to treat her well because she is welcome as one of them. Verse 17. And so she gleaned in the field until evening. She was there in the morning. And then when she was ready, she had all the bundles. She would beat out what she had gleaned. Now understand, beat out is very similar to the wheat style or the paddy. You would take bunches of it and you would hit the head of the bunch so that the wheat, the barley, right? The barley would fall out and of the husk, right? And she got about an ephah of barley, and that you need to understand that it is a lot. It is a lot. And then she took it up and went into the city, back to Bethlehem, and to her mother-in-law, and she saw what she had gleaned. And so she brought out and gave to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. What do you mean by this? Remember, just now in verse 14, when it was time for food, she had ate and she had kept back, and that would be the food she kept back for the mother-in-law after she has been filled. And then this is to remind us that Ruth never forgets the mother-in-law. She treats the mother-in-law like her own mother. Right? That's important. Verse 19. And her mother-in-law said to her, "Where have you gleaned today? And where did you work?" Again, you could say this is an A and this is a B. Where you glean is where you would have do things, right? That's what this means. And so she said, "Blessed be the one who took notice of you." The idea here is this one who took notice literally means to have recognized, and what else could this mean? Pay attention, right? Took notice is recognize her, pay attention to her, willing to acknowledge her. And what does this mean? It says, "Blessed be the one who took notice of you, who recognized you, and more importantly, she is a ger, as one who has joined Israel. That she is not humiliated, she is given special care and treatment." And so she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, did the stuff, and said, "The man's name with whom I work today is Boaz," right? Boaz. Now let's go to verse 20. Then Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, "Blessed be he of the Lord," right? Blessed be he of the Lord. Now understand, this is about blessing, right? Blessing. Blessed be he. So these are pronouncements, I guess you could say, pronouncements. Blessed be he of the Lord. Now, what does it mean? Blessed be he of the Lord means may the Lord bless him. That would be how we would read it today. Right? May the Lord bless him. And he has not forsaken his kindness to the living and the dead. What does that mean? That he actually knows who Ruth is, and he did not forsake, he did not leave, set aside his kindness, and this is hesed, his kindness, his loyalty to his own people, to the living, the ones who is alive, and the dead, the ones who have died. This is with regards to the relatives. And Naomi is a relative. And knowing Naomi is a relative, Ruth was treated special because she and Naomi are part of the living of the relatives, and remembering that they have the dead, the sons and the husband. And Naomi said to her, "This man is a relation of ours, one of our close relatives." And this is where we should spend a little bit of time in the translation. So she said, Naomi says, "This man is a relation of ours." Now that's English. So this man is somebody who is a very, how would you say, a relation. Let me just start from the back part. Our close relatives. Our close relatives means one who is very near in relationship. That's the meaning of close relatives. The second part is this one that I want to address, that the man is a relation of ours. This word relation means a redeemer who is a kinsman, somebody of a tribe. And I think this is important for us to understand. This word here is a very special word. And in Hebrew, Ruth will understand. And Ruth will be made to understand that while there is no men in the lives of Naomi, all the property is actually held by relatives. And this man, Boaz, right? Boaz is somebody who is very near in relationship, and he is able in a very close relationship to become one who can redeem our property. This is what relations actually mean. So it doesn't really mean relationship as relationship, but a kinsman redeemer would be a very good understanding. Now, what is a redeemer? A redeemer is one who can effect a transaction with the relatives on behalf of Naomi, and in particular, Elimelech, the husband who has died, to take back what was originally Elimelech's. And thereby, Boaz can actually play that role as a son, or so-called son, right? So-called son of Elimelech. And so that is what the word actually means. And the word comes from the word Gaal. We've seen this word before in the book of Exodus, that the Israelites were redeemed from Egypt, meaning they are to be returned from where they originally came from the Canaan, and they went to Egypt. They would be redeemed, meaning to be returned back to Canaan. And so in this case, when the man is a redeemer, it means that this man, Boaz, can actually take back what was Elimelech's property to be returned back to its rightful owner. That is what this word actually means. And so Ruth, the Moabitess, again, to remind us that she is a ger. She is a foreigner who has become loyal in Israel. And Ruth said, oh, he also said to me, you shall stay close by my young men until they have finished all my harvest. All my harvest means the entire harvest time, right? Entire period of harvesting. And stay close by my young men, meaning she will be under the protection of Boaz. In our last segment here, verse 22, Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, it is good, my daughter. Understand this. The word good is tov. Again, in the Hebrew concept, tov is in the eyes of the beholder. And in this case, it is good for Ruth. So in Ruth's eyes, it should be good to stay close by my young men. What is this good? Good means it would be beneficial to her. It is functional to her. It's something that she would consider right? And that is the case by staying close by the young men of Boaz. And Naomi said, it is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women. Now, what about these young men? Now, understand this. The harvest are done by two groups of people. Young women, young men. The young men are able to protect, and the young women is what is lawful. And she hangs around with them. And that people do not meet you in any other field. Why? Because in any other field, they do not have the protection of the young men. And without the young women to teach her what to do, to learn what is lawful, then she would be lost. And so this whole expression here, Boaz says, close by my young men, you would, these are the young men of the harvest. And Naomi says, stay with the young women, also with the harvest. And both of these actually equate to what is good, right? What is good. And so the result is she stayed close. The idea stay close is the word cling, cleave, which gives us an idea. And the man shall leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. That is what it means. To stay close. To stay close. To be together. To be under the protection and guidance of the young women of Boaz. That is what this word really means. And this is a word from this context will give us a better idea of the husband and wife cleaving to each other, of Israel clinging to God, and of Ruth clinging to the young women. So staying close by, so clinging doesn't literally means glued together, but in the aspect of a relationship, that they are tightly knitted, such that Ruth is part of them, and hence will enjoy the provision and protection of Boaz that was designed for the young women and young men for the harvest. And so Ruth will enjoy the same protection as the workers of Boaz. That will give us an understanding that she has joined Israel. And this will give us another picture by joining the young men and women of Boaz, gives us the idea of cleaving. And so joining Israel is like cleaving to Israel and cleaving to Israel's God, Jehovah. And verse 23, really teaches us that principle of clinging to Naomi, and now clinging to the young women of Boaz, to glean until the end of the barley harvest. That is the period of, I guess, we would say the Nisan area, the Nisan harvest, or Aviv. And then the wheat harvest, which would be approximately 2 months thereafter. And so we find that if this Nisan is about March, April, then you add another 50, 60 days to this, you would find that this would be in probably around the June area, right? The June time frame, where you get the wheat harvest and ongoing throughout the summer. And so she dwelt with her mother-in-law. And this idea here is to live, right? To sit together. And so the two of them, Ruth and Naomi, lived together during this whole period of the barley and the wheat. And that will be sometime from March to June, right? A couple of months, June, July time frame. And that will give us the end of today's narrative with regards to the meaning of becoming part of Israel and the introduction of the idea of a redeemer, right? Of a redeemer. Now we'll read more of the redeemer in the coming chapters. But chapter 2 has now opened up our doors to understanding the life of an Israelite, the life of a ger or a foreigner who have joined Israel, and how that would look like in the context of Boaz, and how Boaz would treat her with more special care. And now that Naomi has recognized that Boaz is one of those who can be a redeemer, the relationship with Boaz has to be built. And with this, we come to the end of chapter 2.